Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Stephen Greer Show. I'm Marilyn Gewacke, and I'm filling in for Dr. Greer. And I am joined by Diane Saunders. Both of us just returned from the Phoenix, Arizona expedition just last week. So it's hot off the press, and it's deep in our hearts. And we're here tonight to talk about what happened at the expedition. So welcome, Diane.
Yes, I'm excited to be here and to talk about our experiences in the most amazing expedition we just finished.
Diane and I think, haven't we, wasn't this our sixth expedition that we both have been to?
Yes, this was our sixth one. It's hard to believe.
And
I completed number 6.
And this expedition, I would say, and you can confer with this or not, but was probably the deepest expedition in terms of consciousness, meditation, and ET contact that I think I experienced.
Yes, I would say that also.
And I think one of the most profound things that I want to start out with saying about Dr. Greer is what an amazing spiritual teacher he is. And I think people often think these expeditions are just about going out and seeing ET craft and having beings come up to the circle and saying hello. And certainly we have, through three-dimensional manifestation of the ET coming into our circle. But far more important than that is Dr. Greer's understanding of higher consciousness states. He is one of the most incredible spiritual teachers I have ever been with. And I think what makes his protocol extremely unique is how he teaches us to go into these higher consciousness states and high meditation states. And much of the expeditions are about learning to do this and understanding that this is how we're going to evolve as a human race by becoming able to be the high consciousness human beings that we are, and in that evolve into a whole new way of being on this planet. And it was very striking to me, Diane, this time about how much time we spent in learning more about that.
Yes, I have to say that for me, the expeditions have become an amazing time, but especially this one. But they really are like meditation retreats, and I am so grateful also to Stephen for being a teacher in consciousness and just having this opportunity to, it's almost like learning to walk. It's like learning a new language, learning to see differently and hear differently, and to really step into territory that is pretty unknown. And it's not like I haven't studied meditation for really a long time, but it almost makes me feel like I haven't studied meditation until I've really started coming on these expeditions, because there's amazing changes that start to happen. Because when Stephen guides you in meditations, it's like, well, as he's explained it too, he is seeing what he's guiding us to experience, and something starts to happen as we take a step into a really new place. And then even in the meditations, I mean, we're meditating a lot, and in the meditations alone, it just feels like it's rocket fuel. And I really come away with just a very deepening experience, and especially this time, I just felt like I went to places that then allowed me to really open my heart and connect with our ET brothers and sisters like I never have before. It was really very moving, extremely moving.
Yes, and I think there's sort of two parts to the spiritual journey in these expeditions. One is to evolve ourselves in consciousness and to really understand the importance of that. And then secondly, in that high consciousness state, that's where we meet and greet and feel and see the ET beings, because they already are in that higher consciousness state. And it's so great to learn from Dr. Greer how even the fact that they transdimensionally travel and blip in and out of our reality, and that transdimensional travel can only take place but civilizations that have risen to that higher consciousness level. And it's almost like instead of expecting our ET friends to come down to our level, we're learning to step up a notch, which we have to do on Earth if we're going to evolve, in order to meet kind of the higher consciousness state of where the ETs are. And then in that way, we vector them into this reality. And it's just an amazing experience to understand that.
It is. And I think the power of doing it in a group, and I found in Arizona this time, each participant, everyone was so supportive of helping each other, because it feels like you're learning to take a big leap. It's like leaping into a new kind of consciousness, this higher consciousness. And when you do that in a supportive group, and when people sit and share their experiences, it sort of helps you to feel like, you want to step up, you want to expand. And to do that in a supportive atmosphere, it's very profound. It's harder to do that on your own, especially because of this feeling that it's a new language, it's the new consciousness. And then to take that connection and to have these amazing experiences that also pours higher energy into you, I think that's also partly what deepens your meditations.
Well, I think that's a great point, because this group, everybody that was at this group had been at another expedition, so everybody was on board with understanding a lot of Dr. Greer's teaching, and I think the cohesiveness that happened in the group night after night after night. And I think you said at one point, it's different when you just go out for one night, but we went out night after night after night, and the cohesiveness in our group just kept growing, and we really built this incredible field of higher consciousness between and among us, and that was quite an experience.
Yes, and I think helping each other, to be patient, because it definitely takes patience to be out in the field and to sit in meditations and to just sort of quell the part of your mind that says, okay, when is something going to happen? Because when you're in that state, not a lot really happens, but when you really connect in this higher way, that's when it's like you feel rocked by your experiences. And
right.
We will get to those experiences because we did have a lot of amazing experiences in Arizona.
Amazing. Well, what might be helpful, Diane, is if we kind of went through an outline of exactly how these expeditions are set up, because I think if anybody gets anything from this hour, it's maybe an excitement and a motivation to join these expeditions in the future, because both Diane and I have had our lives totally changed because of them. But it might be helpful to kind of give an outline of how these expeditions take place and sort of the structure of them. And, we spend every afternoon together, and Stephen teaches us a lot about meditation and higher consciousness, remote viewing we get taught, and how to do these kind of things. And then we have a dinner break, and we go back to our rooms, and we meditate some more. And then we go out into the field around 8:30 or 9, and we're in the field for several hours, and Stephen leads us through, again, meditation and thought sequencing, vectoring to bring the ETs to us. And then we spend some time, of course, looking at the skies and having experiences in sort of our higher sight, what I would call our higher sight and our higher hearing with the ETs. And that pretty much happens every day. And, Diane, this time, Stephen, before the nighttime event, did a puja every night. I don't know if you want to explain what the puja is, but he did one every single night, which is pretty incredible.
Well, yes, it's a beautiful ceremony done in Sanskrit, and
yes.
It's really an act of worship, and it comes from the Hindu faith, and it's a beautiful act of connecting with higher consciousness and honoring the great beings, the great ones who have walked before us and who still walk with us.
And Stephen, does, like you say, he recites it in Sanskrit, and it's just very moving. And each night he dedicated the puja to something different. Like one night he dedicated it to all the children that are here on Earth now and that are coming into Earth. And another night he's dedicated it to all the extraterrestrial beings that have come to Earth and died and given their lives. And it was just quite moving to set the sacredness of the night.
Yes, it really contributes greatly to us going into those higher states of consciousness, and it's quite beautiful, and it's beautiful to do it together. And sometimes I look around and I just see how it moves everybody, and it really brings you into your heart, which is just a wonderful, wonderful way to experience the rest of the evening, and of course really important.
Well, that heart opening that you often talk about, Diane, is one of the things that it just strikes me, because it feels like if when I feel and hear the ETs close, it is through my heart, not my mind. And all of this higher consciousness techniques that we do, it's all very, very heart opening.
No, it really is, and I think one of the things, as I keep going to expeditions, I'm really struck by is my relationship with the ETs keeps, deepening. On my first expedition, I really thought it was all about, okay, I'm just going to stare at the sky. But there's this beautiful deepening of my connection with these beautiful beings, and I'm not always sure who they are or what they all look like. Sometimes we do get different images of different kinds of ET beings, but mostly there's so much of this connecting through the heart that starts to happen, and I notice how each time it really changes my life. It affects me after I leave the expedition, and it keeps growing. And then, of course, when we take that into our local contact group, but it's really quite beautiful to watch this developing relationship. And so it feels like it's beyond the relationship with their crafts. Now it's with their hearts, and sometimes
with their consciousness,
less tangible. Yes.
And so many people this time had such incredible visions of a lot of different ETs. All kinds of different civilizations visited us, and so many people had such heart-opening, warm relationships with these beings that came to us in so many different forms, which maybe we can get into now, about how some of this came in totally the three-dimension. I mean, Diane, we were standing out together with Dr. Greer on the first night. Well, actually, it was the night before the expedition started, and we were standing outside of his house in the desert of Arizona, and we were just looking out over the desert and the sky, and in the northwest, this incredible, fully manifested teal, the color teal, which I had never seen before, craft came into the sky right at the horizon. And it stayed for a little bit. Wouldn't you say?
Yes. Oh, yeah. So it was really quite amazing. It almost felt like a welcoming, like they were welcoming us in beginning our expedition, even though officially it started the next night. But that was really beautiful.
That was an incredible craft, and it stayed, and then it left, and then it came back a more amber red, and then it stayed, and then it just flipped out. And then that night we also saw kind of a golden craft come over the north, go across the sky, and just disappear. So that was so exciting, because we weren't even out in the field per se. We were just standing with some of Stephen's team out on the back deck, and it was just, yes, it felt like a welcome. We're here, and it's going to be a great week, which it was.
Yes, and it all began. And once it begins, hold on to your hats.
Hold on to your hats. Well, yeah, and almost every night there were crafts that appeared, fully manifested, especially in the Sirius, where the star Sirius is, and Orion, the constellation of Orion. And in that sector of the sky, there almost every night there were craft that came across the sky, flash bulbs, bright lights, and that's actually where the craft we'll talk about in a minute, where the spectacular event happened in the middle of the week. But so we definitely saw craft And we also had interesting other anomalies during the week. Again, in full three-dimensional manifestation, there were wonderful tones. Now, mind you, we're in the middle, we're on the edge of a 5 million acre natural land of Arizona, and we're on the edge of it. We heard coyotes every night howling. It was just most beautiful. And so here we are in the middle of nowhere, and we hear these beautiful tones. And, in fact, one night we heard this very low reverberation, and it was the strangest sound, and Dr. Greer felt sure that it was a craft that was slowly coming into this dimension from transdimensional travel. But it was a sound I had never heard before. Did you hear that sound, Diane?
Yes, I did. I heard some of it. It was quite amazing. I mean, you really learn to listen carefully on these expeditions, and when you do, your senses really start to have different experiences.
Yes, and I think I think you had said earlier when we were talking about this interview how clever the extraterrestrials are in manifesting themselves in different modalities, and certainly vision is one, but the auditory events in this expedition, the tones and this low reverberation, and then there was another night when it almost sounded like someone was playing a low bass string on a big bass instrument, and again it felt like they were just coming into our reality and using these tones and these sounds to let us know they were right there. And people say, well, why don't they fully manifest? And of course, part of that is, and we always say this in all expeditions, that please only manifest to the degree that it's safe. And what happens a lot is it becomes unsafe for ETs to manifest in totality here because our military is interested in, unfortunately, shooting them down. And so it isn't safe a lot, but the ways in which they start to communicate, like, for instance, through the auditory channel, is amazing.
Yeah, and it's really fun because you're out in the field with each other and you hear a sound and you check it out and you go, who heard that? And Stephen will often say, how many people heard that and what was it? So you really become, it's like an ET detective. Because
yeah, it's true. Well, go ahead.
You go, that's okay.
No, I'm getting excited now about this whole expedition. It just happened, so it's right there. I remember one night there were footsteps. So I think I was sitting by Jen, and we heard these incredible footsteps right behind us. And mind you, of course, there's no human there, but there were footsteps as clear as can be, and people started hearing them omnidirectional. In other words, everybody thought they were behind them, so they were everywhere. And they were, coming into our dimension as much as they could. And often we will hear footsteps. Sometimes we will hear voices. Several people got touched, literally touched from behind. And so these are all the ways in which we've learned that this is communication.
Yes, and it's wonderful because everybody shares. So if you didn't get touched or if you didn't hear something, someone else did. And so that's part of the cohesiveness of the group. Sometimes we become each other's eyes and ears, and even when a craft comes in, it comes in so quick, not everybody always sees it. But
yes,
we share the experience with each other, which then you don't feel as left out. And that's really important.
And sometimes, go ahead.
Well, even something that's so wonderful, especially in this expedition, was the radar detectors. There was like this beautiful communication where sometimes we would ask a question and the radar detector would just beep, beep, beep in response to say, yes, that's right, to a question or something that was said. And you really started feeling like that was how the ETs communicated with us, was through the beeping of the radar detectors. And go ahead.
We've had that happen almost every expedition, and And Stephen has said that 2 beats means yes, and it is uncanny how a radar detector will be quiet, 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 and Stephen will say something pretty profound about what's happening in the circle, and the radar detector will confirm it with 2 beats. Now, mind you, again, there's nothing where we are that would ever set off these radar detectors, but we had radar detector activity the entire week, and we had very weird anomalies with these radar detectors and the electromagnetic meters that we had on the site. I mean, I know my radar detector one night, the battery, I just put new batteries in it, and the batteries went totally dead. The radar detector turned off, and it was useless for the rest of the night. I put new ones in the next day again, and again it turned itself off, and I thought it was off for the night, and all of a sudden it started beeping away later that night. So, and I know other people had a lot of these experiences with their radar detectors. They would just be quiet and turn off, and all of a sudden, somehow, they would turn on again.
And even with people's cameras, the batteries in their cameras, brand new batteries that would be put in, and they would just go, and then they'd go back to their rooms later, and they would find that their cameras worked.
Yes. Yes, I think Sarah had that happen where her camera battery went totally dead, and the next day she told us in the airport it was working fine. And I know Dan's camera she would say, I have an hour left on my camera, and 2 minutes later the whole camera went dead. So we
need a lot of batteries out in the field.
Yes, we do need a lot of batteries.
Yeah.
And the meters, the electromagnetic meters, I mean, Stephen meter, I mean, he would have it turned up all the way, and it would register nothing. We had the strangest magnetic anomalies come over the group. It was almost like there was no magnetic field whatsoever, that we were inside crafts that created these weird anomalies with all our equipment.
Yes, because someone else's magnetometer did the same thing. So there were a couple people that no matter how high they turned it up, it wasn't working right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So these are just some of the ways that we've learned that extraterrestrial beings communicate with us, and it's in a safe way. So,
yes, and it's wonderful to start to be able to sense them in that way. It's subtle, but it's really wonderful when you start to get those subtleties.
Well, we've come home from some of these expeditions and continued to hear tones in the house and experience some of these anomalies continue with us. So it's learning to be astute and understanding how communication takes place. So given that, let's get to the exciting part. Because as a midweek, we had quite an extraordinary event happen. And I'll let you talk about what happened in the field, because it happens that night, after the break, I went back up in the room, and because I was getting over a cold, so I wasn't actually at the field, but something happened in the room where I was. But maybe you can talk about this incredible night.
It was really very powerful. There was a flash, a huge flash, not just like a light bulb flash. It was a huge flash of bluish-white light. It came into the group from a craft between Orion and Sirius. And the flash was so bright that even people with their eyes closed saw it, because we were in a meditation, and then opened their eyes. And it was just specific to our group. It didn't light up anything beyond our group. It came in from the sky but filled the circle with this beautiful celestial light. And it was very, very, the energy of that light was magnificent and powerful. And some people actually felt like it warmed the back of their heads and then stayed with people. And so it didn't illuminate the mountains surrounding us. And in that moment, I think a lot of people really felt that it reaffirmed how ET life and ETs are very real. And that energy that came in, it was almost like this cosmic celestial energy came in from this craft and affected us for quite a while. And I think it's still affecting everybody. It was really an amazing experience. And then you had an amazing experience back in the room at the same time that this went on.
Yeah, I had no idea this was going on, and I was actually in my bed meditating. And it was at the exact same time, because after I had my experience, I looked at the clock, and so I was able to verify the time that this happened. But I was in my bed, and I thought my eyes were closed because I was meditating, but they were wide open, and this energy came into the room, and it was fully in the 3 dimension. Anybody that would have been in this room would have seen this energy. It was this, this web of, this grid of blue-white light that came into the room and was pulsing and moving and 3-dimensional. Wasn't flat. It was total 3-dimensional, and it was pulsing. And I looked at it and I said, oh my God, I've never seen anything like this. It was alive. And the first thought was, this is absolutely a live energy pulsing with blue-white light filaments that started connecting. And as I say, anybody would have seen this. It wasn't in a vision. It wasn't in a meditation. It was fully manifested in the room, and it sort of burst. Once the blue-white light filaments joined, it sort of burst into a full whole room light and then left. And I wasn't feeling that great, so I was like stunned by all this. And then when you all came back to the casino where we were staying, I found out that this incredible light energy, cosmic burst had come into the group. And as Stephen said, the ETs are so compassionate that even though I was in the room and wasn't in the group, I also got to share in this experience, and that light came into my bedroom and just poured over me with this incredible, it felt like cosmic information. And later in a meditation, I asked this field, because it felt so alive and it felt like a being. And I asked what this was about, and what I heard was so incredible. It was that this cosmic, beautiful light energy is in all of us. And it's not just in these higher consciousness, God consciousness, ET civilizations, that it's in all of us. And this light came to our group to sparkle and open up and awaken this field of energy and light and knowing and wisdom that's in all of us. And for days and weeks and months to come, this information inside of us that we all have, all of us have it, not just those that go on expeditions or do meditation. All humans, all beings have this deep cosmic information and deep way to connect with higher consciousness. And that this came to us to kind of jumpstart and awaken our remembrance of the truth of who we are, and that we need to learn to walk with it in great power, but with great grace. And I think several people in the group, that was my experience, but several people in the group had similar kind of feelings about what this light did to them in terms of waking something up.
Well, even the next day, I think I had a very profound meditation that I had never experienced before, and it just, even remembering it now, it was a kind of meditation where I really experienced the vastness of the universe within me. It was like I would go into a room, and then another huge room would open, and then another room, and I felt like I was just traveling into such vastness that I had never quite experienced, that all of this is really inside of all of us. And I remember after the meditation, I was like, oh my God, I really lost all sense of time and could barely get up and walk back inside into the casita. And when I started remembering it, even days after that, my heart, I just felt like I was filled with such divine opening and love. It was really magnificent. And I do attribute that to this cosmic flash. It was like a cosmic download. And, it's unforgettable. And we all have that vastness inside of us that when we start to get a glimpse of it, it really is life-changing.
Well, and you start to understand these concepts of oneness and unity consciousness, that this place inside of us is the place that begins to connect, I think, through the heart to all that is. And this is where oneness and unity consciousness begins to be experienced. And so many extraterrestrial civilizations are already in this consciousness. And so by the time they travel to us through multi-dimensional travel, they wish no harm to us. I mean, it's so clear when you do this work that in order for extraterrestrials to come this far and to understand how to travel through consciousness, that really the thing that so many extraterrestrial civilizations want for Earth right now is for us to make the transition to this unity consciousness, to remembering who we really are as human beings, having an incredible spiritual experience, and that in that process we can really become an Earth of new human beings where there's peace and harmony and love as the main motivators for all behavior on Earth. And when we do that, we will be asked to join the intergalactic community of these people.
Because they don't even have a word for war, a lot of these civilizations. They don't, this is what blows my mind. They don't understand, or they don't know the language of war. And that's what gives me so much hope, is that it's like a foreign concept. And I do believe, that's where we're heading, that one day this idea of hating each other and killing each other will just not exist anymore.
Yeah.
And that's what you start to feel through this unity consciousness, is just hope. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you go on these expeditions, the thing that happens is you start getting in touch with your own ability to be in these higher consciousness states, to be in unity consciousness, to be in oneness, to understand non-local consciousness, that we're all really connected, and so doing harm to someone else is doing harm to you. And that is part of the amazing thing of going on these expeditions, is your own evolution, let alone your relationships you begin to develop with all these different extraterrestrial civilizations that come in. And they're so beautiful. And you feel it through your heart that the beauty is almost sometimes too overwhelming.
Yes. That's the life-changing part, is how your heart becomes so open. But we did see other things in the field also.
Well, I think you and Stephen and Sarah saw something pretty extraordinary.
Yes, we did. There's other things that we saw. Before I get to that, there was another flash of light that was different from that light we were just talking about. It was a quick light from the north, and that was, interesting enough, that was followed by some loud explosive noise. So we're not sure exactly what that was, the loud explosive noise, but some people speculated on that one. But that was an event that happened, and a lot of what we see too also is a lot of energy fluctuations. So part of the seeing is just looking with soft eyes, and you start to see energy fluxing, and sometimes that's actually the beings that have come in and are visiting us partially materialized. So that's that's also pretty extraordinary.
Yes, the energy fluxing. And the orbs that come in.
Yes.
There were a lot of red, ruby red orbs and golden orbs, and several people saw those, and some of them were outside of the circle, and some came right into the circle.
Yeah.
So again, that's the partial manifestation of the extraterrestrials coming in. But I think back to that bright light, and then the huge kind of almost sounded like a bomb. That sound, I think Dr. Greer felt strongly that, the bright light was a craft almost fully manifesting, and sometimes there are many parties who do not want this contact to take place, and some of that, they may be using scalar weaponry to kind of, as scare tactics to not have the craft come in. And so there's all very interesting things, including military helicopters coming over and everything else. So
yes,
it's quite an interesting week.
It does take some, we are led by someone with amazing moral courage, and I feel like we're all guided to step up. And we'll talk about that a little bit later and what it means to really be an ambassador. But, yes, getting back to closer to the end of the expedition, three of us, Stephen, myself, and another member, saw this beautiful teal disc-shaped craft that came in, I believe it was from the east to the west, and north, right? It moved from the east to the west. And what was so beautiful, it was beautiful to witness this. And things happened really quick, as I mentioned before, so only three of us saw that. But Stephen had actually remote viewed, yes, it was the east to the west moving. Stephen had remote viewed it occurring in the northern skies, that there would be a craft that would come in. So that's always really fascinating when people remote view things in advance and then it actually happens. And that was pretty spectacular. I was excited that I got to see that. I had my eyes riveted on the northern skies so that I wouldn't miss that, because once Stephen said he remote viewed it, I really was determined. So I intended that I would see it, and I was fortunate enough to experience that beautiful disc-shaped teal craft moving across the sky.
Well, yeah, and it was so strange because at the very beginning of the night, he did say, watch the northern skies because something pretty spectacular is going to happen, and sure enough, it did.
Yes.
You actually saw the craft itself.
Yes, I did see the craft because it was disc-shaped, and yeah, it came in and it left and it manifested in the safest way possible for those particular beings, and that's why things happen so quick, because it's really not safe for them to linger too long. So you learn to really watch real carefully. And you get better at it. You definitely get better at it after you go to a couple expeditions. Your eyes really, really become much more vigilant, which is wonderful.
Yes. And I think many people, I was so moved by people's meditations and visions that so many people on this expedition had such powerful personal experiences.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they really did. I mean, as a matter of fact, I did ask a couple of members to share, knowing that we were going to be doing this, and I think that one member cited, he said that, well, to use his words exactly, he said that his experience with CSETI in Arizona was educational, but flat out life-changing. He said that Dr. Greer blessed us with advanced meditation techniques and created a love and truth-filled environment for the whole week. He said he was truly thankful to have shared this experience with the 23 members in Arizona. So I was very moved by that. I mean, when people share how life-changing it is, it's really wonderful.
It truly is, and I think it'll take me weeks to digest this past expedition.
Yes, and I can share another quote from another member. This member said that the experience for her, it was a loving sense of unity and oneness, guided by one with moral courage and an inestimable understanding of the far horizon that lies before humanity. So that's a pretty powerful explanation or experience.
And so true.
Yes, absolutely.
And these expeditions are just one part of Dr. Greer's work, because, of course, disclosure is how he began and doing enormous work and compiling enormous, real, truthful evidence of disclosure, and all the military witnesses and the press club conference that was held in 2001. And really, if you look at his documentation, if you look at his book, if you look at his DVD on disclosure, the evidence is profound and unquestionable in terms of the truth of each contact. And I think if you understand that disclosure has been held in secret for a long, long time, and there are so many things attached to that, and one of them is that's so important is Stephen does disclosure. He does these expeditions, which is the actual contact, and he also does the Orion Project. And the Orion Project is so important to mention because it helps you begin to understand why disclosure has been in such secret, because on some of these ET crafts that have crashed, we've had enormous technology come out of these crafts. We have crafts made by our own military that are anti-gravitational crafts. We have devices called free energy devices sitting on shelves that could supply Earth with all the energy it needed to help cease pollution, could stop our need for oil, and could make poverty and hunger something of the past. And so Earth could change within a year. We could have the entire planet. We could have no hunger and no poverty, and we could have energy everywhere on Earth. And when you realize the vision of that, and there are just a lot of people who don't want to lose the power and the money they have invested in old resources like oil. And so this is really an incredible thing that Dr. Greer is doing, and it helps you begin to understand when you look at all the disclosure documents that you get that, this has been in secret for so long. And when you go on an expedition and you actually have contact, you get that the extraterrestrial civilizations are here. They want to communicate. They want to help us. They want to see our planet move to the next stage. And when you understand we have devices that could cure so many ailments that are on our planet right now, you understand the moral courage that Dr. Greer is all about.
Yes, and we need everybody to join in. And we all need to express whatever degree of moral courage we can muster up to be a part of learning more about higher consciousness and understanding more about ETs in order to join in and be ambassadors to the universe. It's not no one else to do this work. It's really up to all of us, everyone who's listening and everyone who's already a part of these expeditions and currently are ambassadors.
Well, yes, and I think one of the things I came away with so strongly this expedition is when Stephen said, there is no one else. It is us. We can't rely on the government to come out and disclose all of this. We can't rely on any other leader to do that. It is up to us. It is in our laps. We have the power, and we have to step into that. And I think, for me, coming back and realizing what it really means to be an ambassador has deepened so quickly over this last week of understanding it is up to us, and there's no time to dilly-dally around what needs to be done. I know Diane and I have come back from other expeditions, and we were trying to form a local CSETI group of people who had been to some expeditions, but also we invite people who are willing to study Dr. Greer's protocols. And we have 15, 16, 17 people now in our local CSETI group, because you don't have to just do this with Dr. Greer. In fact, he's so steadfast in saying, go back and form your own local CSETI groups and have contact. And that's one level of being an ambassador, is to come back and continue to do this contact work with our ET friends. But also, it's a lot more than that.
It is a lot more. It is a lot more. It's having the courage to speak the truth and having the courage to learn how to speak to people in an intelligent but also at their level, but begin the conversation that this is real, and people are going to need ambassadors, especially when full disclosure really happens.
Yes.
Everyone who's capable of talking calmly, and we're the ones who will be less afraid. We won't be afraid at all because we've experienced this, and this is what our planet needs. We really need everyone to join in. And as Stephen jokes, he says the F train stops here. It's us, and it's really up to us in order to commit to our planet and to our relationship with all these universes in a very beautiful, expansive way. We have to begin to speak the truth, because the truth has been hidden, and that isn't okay anymore. The truth has to come out, and all of us need to educate ourselves, develop our consciousness, and start doing this work, even when it's scary and even when it's hard.
Well, and speaking of that, Diane, the marvelous thing that Stephen talked about was producing this documentary that hopefully will be done this year, and the documentary will be about disclosure and about these expeditions and about the Orion Project and these new free energy devices. And this documentary, I think, will change a lot of people, because it will be available through the web and through the internet. And part of what we'll do is being able to show this documentary in our local areas to reach as many people as possible. And I think there is no question in my mind, once people see this documentary, their lives will be changed. And they will understand that this is the most important event, important thing that is happening on our planet right now.
It really is, and it's wonderful to feel like you can be a part of that. I know there's a lot of really good-hearted, well-meaning people on our planet who often say, what can I do? There's so much strife, it's overwhelming, and it's amazing when you are presented with something that you can do, and you can start to educate yourselves. You can come to an expedition, and you can be a part of disclosure, and it will make your life very meaningful as you contribute to our planet in this way.
And what more wonderful things than to understand we're not alone, and we're part of an evolutionary process that many other planets have gone through, and that many other planets have gone through this evolutionary process in consciousness, and those planets and those beings have traveled here to be with us, to watch our process, to at times monitor it, just to see that we won't nuke the whole Earth, and that we too have a chance to become a higher civilization with higher intent in terms of peace and love on this planet. And I have absolute clarity that is where we're headed. And I think Dr. Greer is the most incredible leader and teacher in this process that's happening.
Yes, it's actually a very hopeful time, and it's very hopeful to know what we're capable of, what the human being is really capable of. And as we discover our potential through understanding higher consciousness and through our relationship with these interstellar, highly evolved civilizations, it opens up a whole new world of hope for me, and I hope that everyone else can start to feel that hope as you join in.
It is absolutely, well, I feel like that a lot of these extraterrestrial civilizations have stepped where we now can step, and they're leading the way. And that's an incredible thing to understand. And this is our future if we take it. This is our future, to join our extraterrestrial brothers and sisters and live in this higher consciousness through the heart state of being.
Yes, it's really a wonderful thing, and there are some upcoming expeditions. You can go on the website, but there are several coming up. There's one in Florida, in Marco Island, and there's one. Say it again.
I think that one is in April.
April, yeah. And then there's Crestone in June. That's in Colorado.
Yep. So
you can go on the website and find out more about the dates and the details.
CSETI. It's CSETI, CSETI.org. If you go on the site, CSETI.org, you will see all the upcoming. And there's one in August at Mount Shasta, and Diane and I went to the Mount Shasta one, I believe, in 2009, and that's an extraordinary place to go on an expedition. But they're all extraordinary. And I think there's another one in Palm Springs in November.
Yeah.
So go on the site and take a look, and if you really want to do something that will alter your life in a way unimaginable, go on an expedition with Dr. Greer. He is the best teacher in my life about not only the spiritual process of higher consciousness, but of course in understanding not only how to contact extraterrestrials, but understanding what's happened in the last 100 years with our own civilization and how so much of this is kept secret and why it's been kept secret, and that it's time for disclosure to take place, and it will be by the people.
We can do it. It's time to change all that, and we can do it, and it doesn't take any special kind of person. I know often people go, oh, I don't have what it takes. That isn't true at all. All of us, each and every one of us, can be a part of this incredible movement right now, the movement towards disclosure.
Well, I love that, Diane. I absolutely love that because it's so true. Anyone, and we've been on enough expeditions, we have met people from all walks of life and all ages, and it doesn't matter what your background is. It's just this commitment to join this process of understanding consciousness and contact.
Yes. Hallelujah, Marilyn.
Pardon me?
I said hallelujah, Marilyn.
Yes, hallelujah. I just got that word. Hallelujah is right. Right on, Di. Well, I think we're drawing near the end, and I want to thank you, Diane, for coming on the show, and I am so absolutely honored that I can fill in for Dr. Greer, and I hope people can be inspired by our enthusiasm about this wonderful expedition we had last week. It was quite extraordinary. Anybody that would have been at it would come away, I think, with this same fire in their heart.
Yes, and it's been a pleasure to be able to speak about our experiences together tonight. And I invite everyone to choose to have their own experiences. So thank you.
Yes, well, thank you, and good night to everyone.